Immigrants, this word is heard a lot these days, especially in Western countries. Well, if there are immigrants in a country, they have two aspects, one positive and the other negative. But immigrants become a problem for a country when more unemployed immigrants start settling there than before. In today's video, we are going to see some countries which are becoming ruined due to hosting too many immigrants. You might have guessed that most of the countries in our list today are from Europe. So watch the video till the end so that you can understand this entire video well. So in today's video, we are going to show you 10 countries that are ruined by immigrants. But before starting the video, I want to request you, we put our best efforts to create our every single video. So please don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel. Let's start. Number 10, South Africa. South Africa faces a complex set of challenges related to immigration, which have contributed to economic, social, and political tensions. According to official estimates, the country is home to about 2.9 million immigrants, which would account for slightly less than 5% of the overall population of 60 million people. Immigrants, particularly from neighboring African countries like Zimbabwe, Mozambique, and Nigeria, are often scapegoated for economic hardship. Violent xenophobic attacks have occurred, with migrants being blamed for stealing jobs or engaging in crime. These incidents have caused deaths, injuries, and the destruction of property, further damaging South Africa's international image and diplomatic relations. With South Africa's unemployment rate hovering around 32%, locals often feel that immigrants take jobs, especially in low-wage sectors like construction, hospitality, and retail. Some employers prefer hiring immigrants because they accept lower wages and work under tougher conditions, creating resentment among South Africans. Hospitals in some regions struggle to serve both locals and migrants, leading to overcrowding and strained resources. Many migrants settle in informal townships where services are limited. This has contributed to the growth of slums with poor sanitation and inadequate infrastructure. Many migrants settle in informal townships where services are limited. This has contributed to the growth of slums with poor sanitation and inadequate infrastructure. This leads to competition over already limited services, fostering tensions between locals and migrants. While immigration does present challenges, blaming immigrants alone oversimplifies South Africa's problems. Issues such as unemployment, inequality, and ineffective governance are major underlying causes. Immigrants can also provide benefits. Many are entrepreneurs, skilled workers, or traders who contribute to local economies. A more constructive approach involves addressing structural problems and promoting peaceful coexistence through better policies and social programs. Number 9, Australia. Australia, like many countries, faces challenges associated with immigration, though the narrative of being ruined by immigrants is highly subjective. Immigration has fueled economic growth and cultural diversity, but it has also led to tensions related to infrastructure, housing, and political discourse. As of June 2023, Australia's immigrant population was 8.2 million people, making up 30.7% of the country's population. The top countries of birth for immigrants to Australia are England, India, China, and New Zealand. Rapid population growth, largely driven by immigration, has increased demand for housing, contributing to skyrocketing property prices and rental shortages in cities like Sydney and Melbourne. This has led to concerns that local residents, especially young people, are being priced out of the housing market. The surge in population has put pressure on transportation, healthcare, and education systems. Public transport networks in cities experience frequent overcrowding, and hospitals face increased demand. Inadequate infrastructure planning, rather than immigration alone, is often to blame for these challenges. Some Australians believe that migrants, especially those on temporary work visas, accept lower wages and take jobs from locals. While there are isolated cases of exploitation, many migrants fill labor shortages in critical sectors such as healthcare, agriculture, and construction. However, concerns about wage stagnation remain. Some Australians express concerns about the ability of immigrants from diverse cultural backgrounds to integrate into mainstream society. Political debates about multiculturalism and national identity occasionally lead to social division. Far-right and nationalist movements have gained traction by criticizing immigration policies. Increased urbanization to accommodate a growing population has contributed to environmental challenges, such as deforestation, water shortages, and pollution. Cities like Melbourne and Brisbane face sustainability challenges as infrastructure struggles to keep pace with population growth. Some migrants, especially international students and those on working holiday visas, face exploitation through wage theft and poor working conditions. This creates social tensions and adds to the perception that migrants are unfairly treated, affecting Australia's reputation. While Australia faces legitimate challenges related to immigration, such as housing affordability, infrastructure strain, and cultural tensions, immigration has also brought significant benefits. Migrants contribute to the workforce, enrich cultural diversity, and help offset population aging. Much of the criticism directed at immigration stems from policy failures in urban planning, wage protection, and infrastructure development, rather than immigration itself. Number 8. Canada. You must be aware of the violent protests that took place on the streets of Canada. The citizens of Canada are also facing a lot of trouble due to these protests done by immigrants. While Canada faces challenges related to immigration, Canada is known for welcoming immigrants and reaping significant economic and social benefits, including population growth, workforce expansion, and cultural enrichment. However, some challenges have emerged, such as housing affordability, social tensions, and pressure on infrastructure. As of 2021, immigrants make up 23% of Canada's population, which is the highest percentage in over 150 years. This is also the highest percentage among G7 countries. The list of immigrants in Canada is topped by people of Sikh faith. During the 2021 census of population, 771,790 people in Canada reported belonging to the Sikh faith and could be found in every province and territory. Canada has the second largest Sikh community in the world following India. More Sikhs live in Canada than in England and Australia combined. Rapid immigration-driven population growth has intensified demand for housing, particularly in major cities like Toronto and Vancouver. Property prices and rents have surged, creating a housing affordability crisis and discontent among locals, especially young Canadians. While immigration increases demand, experts also point to zoning restrictions, lack of new housing construction, and foreign investment as major causes of the crisis. Some areas, particularly urban centers, struggle to keep up with the demand for healthcare services. Wait times for appointments and emergency services have increased. Some Canadians feel that immigrants, especially those on temporary work visas, take jobs or suppress wages by accepting lower pay. Concerns are heightened in sectors such as tech, retail, and construction, where newcomers compete with locals for limited job opportunities. The influx of immigrants from diverse cultural backgrounds has raised concerns about integration and the preservation of Canadian identity. Number 7. United States. As of 2023, the United States had a record 47.8 million immigrants, representing 14.3% of the total population. Some Americans believe that immigrants, especially undocumented ones, take jobs from citizens or drive down wages by accepting lower pay. Low-skilled workers in sectors like construction, agriculture, and hospitality may feel the most competition. Some states with large immigrant populations, such as California and Texas, experience increased demand for education, healthcare, and social services. Hospitals, particularly near the U.S.-Mexico border, often report high costs for providing emergency care to uninsured patients, including undocumented immigrants. The U.S. faces challenges with illegal immigration, with thousands of migrants crossing the southern border each year. This has created concerns about crime, security, and the enforcement of immigration laws. The influx of undocumented migrants has become a contentious political issue, contributing to polarization over border policies. Anti-immigrant rhetoric has gained traction in some political movements, contributing to polarization and the rise of populist leaders. Some Americans fear that high levels of immigration threaten traditional cultural values or make integration difficult. In cities with high immigrant populations, housing demand has increased, contributing to higher rents and property prices. Some argue that population growth, driven in part by immigration, increases pressure on natural resources and contributes to environmental degradation. Expanding urban areas and higher energy consumption raise concerns about sustainability. Rapid urbanization can also lead to traffic congestion and pressure on public transportation systems. Number 6. France. The notion that France is ruined by immigrants reflects a controversial and politicized viewpoint. While France faces legitimate challenges linked to immigration, such as economic pressures, social integration issues, and political polarization, many of these difficulties are compounded by structural problems within the country. Immigrants have also contributed to the economy, culture, and labor force. Below is a balanced look at how immigration poses challenges, alongside other factors at play. In 2022, France had about 8.7 million people who were born outside of the country, which is about 10.3% of the population. France has struggled to integrate immigrants, especially from North and West Africa, leading to tension between different cultural communities. Some French citizens feel that immigration threatens their national identity, values, and secular traditions. For example, the wearing of religious symbols like the hijab has sparked national debates and government regulations. Some immigrant-heavy neighborhoods, particularly in urban suburbs, are characterized by poverty, unemployment, and limited access to quality education or public services. These marginalized communities can become disconnected from mainstream French society, fostering resentment and social unrest. Violent protests have erupted in areas like Seine-Saint-Denis, driven by tensions between police and residents, exacerbating perceptions that these communities are unsafe or unmanageable. Some segments of French society link immigrants and their descendants with crime, particularly in relation to petty theft, drug trafficking, and violent protests. Perceived or real links between immigration and crime have fueled support for far-right political parties, which advocate for stricter immigration controls. Some high-profile terrorist attacks, carried out by individuals with immigrant backgrounds, have intensified debates around immigration and security. The 2015 Paris attacks and the 2020 murder of Samuel Paty reignited discussions around extremism and the limits of freedom of expression in France. Number 5. Greece. Greece has faced challenges related to immigration, especially due to its position as a gateway to Europe, but many of these issues are intertwined with economic, political, and infrastructural problems. Immigration has undeniably contributed to certain tensions, but it has also provided labor for key sectors. Greece's immigrant population is estimated to be around 1.3 million people, which is about 12.52% of the country's total population. The immigrant population in Greece has been increasing steadily over the past 40 years. Greece is a primary entry point for migrants and refugees traveling from the Middle East, Africa, and Asia to Europe, particularly through the islands in the Aegean Sea. The influx of migrants during the 2015 European migrant crisis overwhelmed Greece's capacity to manage the situation. Refugee camps like Moria on the island of Lesbos became overcrowded, leading to humanitarian concerns and local unrest. The arrival of large numbers of refugees and asylum seekers has stretched public services, including healthcare, housing, and education, particularly on the islands and border regions. In refugee camps, poor living conditions and limited medical care create humanitarian crises. Meanwhile, locals feel that resources are being diverted from Greek citizens. The concentration of migrants and asylum seekers in certain areas has led to tension between locals and migrants. Some communities fear rising crime, competition for jobs, and cultural changes. Many Greeks believe that migrants take jobs from locals or depress wages by working for lower pay, especially in agriculture, construction, and tourism. Tourism is vital to Greece's economy, but some popular tourist destinations, such as Lesbos and Samos, became known more for refugee camps than for vacations, affecting tourism revenue. Some locals argue that the presence of refugee camps deters tourists, leading to economic losses in an already fragile economy. Greece has accused the EU of leaving it to manage the migration crisis with insufficient financial or logistical support. The country feels trapped between migrants trying to enter Europe and other EU nations reluctant to accept them. Number 4. United Kingdom. The claim that the United Kingdom is ruined by immigrants is a divisive and oversimplified narrative often used in political discourse. While the UK faces legitimate challenges related to immigration, such as pressure on public services, cultural tensions, and labor market concerns, immigration has also brought many benefits, including economic growth, innovation, and workforce support. The United Kingdom's immigrant population is estimated to be around 10.7 million, or 16% of the total population, as of the 2022 census. The most common countries of birth for migrants in the UK are India, Poland, Pakistan, Romania, and Ireland. Rapid population growth, partly driven by immigration, has added pressure to public services like the National Health Service, schools, and housing. Long NHS waiting times, overcrowded classrooms, and public housing shortages have fueled frustration among citizens. Some British workers believe that immigrants, particularly from the EU, take jobs or undercut wages by working for lower pay. This has led to resentment in sectors like construction, agriculture, and hospitality, where immigrants often fill labor shortages. The influx of people from diverse backgrounds has led to fears about the erosion of British identity and culture. Cultural differences have sometimes resulted in social friction, especially in communities with rapid demographic change. Immigration became a major factor in the 2016 Brexit referendum, with many voters supporting the UK's departure from the EU to regain control over borders. The post-Brexit restrictions on EU workers have led to shortages in sectors like agriculture, hospitality, transport, and healthcare. Farmers report crops rotting due to a lack of seasonal workers, and the hospitality industry struggles to fill vacancies, affecting service delivery. Number 3. Italy. Italy's location in the central Mediterranean makes it a key entry point for migrants and asylum seekers from Africa and the Middle East, often arriving on boats through Libya. In 2022, Italy's foreign-born population was 6.16 million. This is about 8.7% of the country's total population. Coastal towns and islands like Lampedusa struggle to manage the continuous arrival of migrants, with overcrowded reception centers creating humanitarian crises. Local residents express frustration, and far-right movements have used these situations to amplify anti-immigration rhetoric. The influx of migrants has increased demand for housing, healthcare, and social services, especially in southern regions and urban areas. High migration levels, particularly from North Africa and Sub-Saharan Africa, have led to cultural tensions and fueled anti-immigrant sentiment. Some Italians fear that immigration threatens their national identity and values. Political movements like Lega and Fratelli d'Italia have capitalized on these fears, advocating for stricter immigration policies. Some media and political figures link immigrants to crime, particularly in relation to theft, drug trafficking, and violent incidents. Italy feels abandoned by other EU countries, as migrants often get stranded in the country due to the Dublin regulation, which requires asylum seekers to remain in the first country they enter. This has caused frustration among Italian citizens and politicians, who believe that Italy is unfairly bearing the brunt of Europe's migration crisis. Many migrants live in informal settlements or overcrowded apartments in urban areas, creating ghettos where poverty and exclusion persist. These areas often experience higher crime rates and social tension, leading to further alienation of both immigrants and locals. Number 2. Germany. 15.2 million people lived in Germany in 2021 who themselves had immigrated since 1950, according to microcensus results. Germany accepted over 1 million refugees during the 2015 European migrant crisis, mainly from Syria, Afghanistan, and Iraq. The sudden influx put a strain on public services and social infrastructure. Many Germans felt overwhelmed by the rapid demographic changes, leading to tensions in communities, particularly in smaller towns. Integration efforts, such as language learning and job placement, have been slow and uneven. Immigration increases the demand for public services such as healthcare, education, and housing, especially in urban areas. In some regions, schools and hospitals have struggled to meet the needs of growing populations. Locals sometimes feel that resources are being diverted from native citizens to support immigrants, creating social tension. Some Germans perceive immigration as a threat to national identity and social cohesion, especially with the growth of Muslim communities. Debates around issues like women's rights, religious practices, and integration fuel cultural friction. The rise of populist parties like Alternative for Germany reflects growing public discontent over immigration policies and fears of cultural change. Some media outlets and political parties link immigrants to crime, especially in cases of theft, sexual assault, and violent incidents. High-profile incidents involving immigrants have intensified public fears and increased demand for stricter immigration policies. Germany faces a housing crisis, particularly in major cities like Berlin, Frankfurt, and Munich. Increased immigration has heightened competition for affordable housing, driving up rents. As part of the European Union, Germany is bound by EU migration policies. Some Germans believe that the country bears too much of the migration burden compared to other EU nations. This frustration has fueled calls for greater control over national immigration policy and stricter border enforcement. Number 1. Sweden. The narrative that Sweden is ruined by immigrants is often promoted by certain political groups, but it's essential to understand the situation in a balanced way. Sweden has faced challenges stemming from immigration, including integration difficulties, crime perceptions, and pressure on public services. However, immigration has also contributed to the economy, labor market, and cultural diversity. As of 2023, 20% of Sweden's population, or 2.17 million people, were born outside of the country. This is an increase from 2010, when 1.38 million people were born outside of Sweden. The most common countries of birth for non-EU citizens in Sweden are from Syria, Iraq, Iran, Somalia, and Afghanistan. Sweden accepted a large number of refugees during the 2015 migration wave, especially from Syria, Afghanistan, and Somalia. Integrating such a large number of people has proven difficult. Refugees face language barriers, limited job opportunities, and long waiting periods for asylum decisions, leading to social exclusion and resentment among both immigrants and locals. Some media reports and political groups claim that immigrants are responsible for rising crime, including gang-related violence and sexual assaults. Immigration has increased demand for healthcare, education, housing, and welfare services, creating strain in some areas, especially in large cities. Residents complain about long waiting times for healthcare and shortages in affordable housing, attributing these issues to immigration. Many immigrants, particularly refugees, struggle to enter the labor market due to limited skills, language barriers, and discrimination. Immigrant unemployment rates are significantly higher than the national average, which has led to frustration and perceptions that immigrants are a burden on the welfare system. Some Swedes feel that immigration from non-European countries has brought cultural differences that are difficult to reconcile, particularly around issues like gender equality and religious practices. Some people argue that immigrants, particularly refugees, depend heavily on welfare, contributing to a financial burden on the state. This perception has fueled resentment, with claims that immigrants take advantage of Sweden's generous welfare system. Sweden faces real challenges related to immigration, including integration difficulties, crime perceptions, and pressure on public services. However, these challenges are often linked to broader systemic issues, such as housing shortages, labor market rigidity, and political polarization. Immigrants contribute to Sweden's economy, healthcare system, and cultural diversity, and addressing current challenges requires better integration policies rather than cutting off immigration. Effective solutions involve improving housing, education, and employment opportunities to create a more inclusive society for both immigrants and native citizens. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel. Thanks for watching.